Donald Trump is now officially the Republican presidential nominee.
The great state of Connecticut is casting all 28 delegates for the next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Donald J. Trump!
Donald J. Trump!
Trump won the support of far more delegates than he needed to clinch the nomination.
The political outsider beat 16 other candidates. Two of his toughest rivals, Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, will address the convention tonight.
Other former candidates were among the speakers who blasted Hillary Clinton last night. By our count, they mentioned her name more than Donald Trump's.
A history-making moment for Hillary Clinton last night. Her shout-out to all women, the emotional high point of her speech. Those balloons helped, too. And there's the whole Clinton family back on that stage again. President Clinton right there, but this time accepting a nomination for Hillary.
Her daughter Chelsea calling her mom a, quote, fighter who never gives up. And mom was watching her daughter deliver that speech backstage. And then she took the stage herself, giving her own tough speech, calling out Donald Trump, the Republican nominee, not wasting any time firing back overnight.
It is on. I don't think it's ever been off.
Right.
101 days until the election. Both candidates back on the trail right now. The debates to come.
Secretary Clinton, I want to clear up your position on this issue, because in a speech you gave to a Brazilian bank for which you were paid $225,000, we've learned from the WikiLeaks that you said this, and I want to quote, "My dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders." So that's the question. That's the question. Please quiet, everybody. Is that your dream, open borders?
Well, if you went on to read the rest of the sentence, I was talking about energy. You know, we trade more energy with our neighbors than we trade with the rest of the world combined. And I do want us to have an electric grid, an energy system that crosses borders. I think that will be a great benefit to us.
Your running mate, Governor Pence, pledged on Sunday that he and you, his words, will absolutely accept the result of this election. Today, your daughter Ivanka said the same thing. I want to ask you here on the stage tonight, do you make the same commitment that you will absolutely, sir, that you will absolutely accept the result of this election?
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time. What I've seen is so bad. First of all, the media is so dishonest and so corrupt, and the pile-on is so amazing. The New York Times actually wrote an article about it that they don't even care. It's so dishonest, and they've poisoned the minds of the voters. But unfortunately for them, I think the voters are seeing through it.
There is a tradition in this country, in fact, one of the prides of this country is the peaceful transition of power, and that no matter how hard fought a campaign is, that at the end of the campaign, that the loser concedes to the winner, not saying that you're necessarily going to be the loser or the winner, but that the loser concedes to the winner and that the country comes together in part for the good of the country. Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Well,
okay?
Chris, let me respond to that, because that's horrifying. You know, every time Donald thinks things are not going in his direction, he claims whatever it is rigged against him. The FBI conducted a year-long investigation into my emails. They concluded there was no case.
Good morning. I'm here to give you an update on the FBI's investigation of Secretary Clinton. What I want to do is tell you what we're recommending. But first, let me tell you what we found. 110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference at this point does it make?
8 of those chains are top secret, 36 of those chains secret, and 8 contain confidential information.
What difference at this point does it make?
Everything I did was admitted. There was no law, no regulations.
Secretary Clinton should have known that an unclassified system was no place for that conversation.
I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email.
None of these emails should have been on any kind of unclassified system, not even Gmail.
Well, first of all, nothing was marked classified.
To the contrary,
Nothing was marked classified.
there is evidence.
Nothing was marked classified.
Now let me tell you what we found.
Oh my gosh.
110 emails.
It was not the best choice.
52 email chains
It was a mistake.
have been determined to contain classified information.
What difference difference at this point doesn't make.
8 of those chains are top secret. 6 of those chains secret. And 8 contain confidential information.
What difference at this point doesn't make.
With respect to our recommendation, this is going to be an unusual statement in at least a couple of ways. Although there is evidence, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case.
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States. President Obama is the ex-president. And Mr. Trump, for the moment, steps away for the inaugural address.
What a great honor to be able to introduce for the first time ever anywhere the 45th President of the United States of America, Donald J.
On the shoulder. You adjust the microphone as you're told, man.
For their gracious aid.
You all, too. Last night, I congratulated Donald Trump and offered to work with him on behalf of our country. I hope that he will be a successful president for all Americans. This is not the outcome we wanted or we worked so hard for, and I'm sorry that we did not win this election for the values we share and the vision we hold for our country. But I feel pride and gratitude for this wonderful campaign that we built together, this vast, diverse, creative, unruly, energized campaign. You represent the best of America, and being your candidate has been one of the greatest honors of my life. I know how disappointed you feel because I feel it too. And so do tens of millions of Americans who invested their hopes and dreams in this effort. This is painful, and it will be for a long time. But I want you to remember this. Our campaign was never about one person or even one election. It was about the country we love and about building an America that's hopeful, inclusive, and big-hearted. We have seen that our nation is more deeply divided than we thought. But I still believe in America, and I always will. And if you do, then we must accept this result and then look to the future. Let me just mention briefly one thread in particular that should concern all Americans, Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike, especially those who serve in our Congress. The epidemic of malicious fake news and false propaganda that flooded social media over the past year. It's now clear that so-called fake news can have real-world consequences.
What I've seen is so bad. First of all, the media is so dishonest and so corrupt, and the pile-on is so amazing. The New York Times actually wrote an article about it that they don't even care. It's so dishonest, and they've poisoned the minds of the voters. But unfortunately for them, I think the voters are seeing through it.
This isn't about politics or partisanship. Lives are at risk. Lives of ordinary people just trying to go about their days, to do their jobs, contribute to their communities. It's a danger that must be addressed, and addressed quickly. Bipartisan legislation is making its way through Congress to boost the government's response to foreign propaganda, and Silicon Valley is starting to grapple with the challenge and threat of fake news.
But they don't even care. It's so dishonest, and they've poisoned the minds of the voters. But unfortunately for them, I think the voters are seeing through it.
It's imperative that leaders in both the private sector and the public sector step up to protect our democracy and innocent lives. But you are very clearly quoting from WikiLeaks, and what's really important about WikiLeaks is that the Russian government has engaged in espionage against Americans. They have hacked American websites, American accounts of private people, of institutions. Then they have given that information to WikiLeaks for the purpose of putting it on the internet. This has come from the highest levels of the Russian government, clearly from Putin himself.
Trump, Putin, Russian collusion.
Trump, Russian sort of collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion. Trump, Russian, metal collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, potentially collusion.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, bot collusion. Trump, Russian collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Russia hacked our election. Here comes a big change. Because all of a sudden, Trump, Russian, possible collusion, Russian collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion.
Trump, Russian, possible collusion. Trump, Russians, collusion.
Collusion with the Russians. Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Trump, Russia, possible collusion. Prove collusion. Prove collusion.
Was there collusion?
Absolutely.
Trump, Russia, possible collusion. 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 Trump, Russia, potential collusion. Trump, Russia, potential collusion.
And the Kremlin and be in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion and Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin are very worried in collusion. This president in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin and be in collusion. This president in collusion with Putin. And the Kremlin are very worried in collusion.
All 17 intelligence agencies.
17 agencies.
17 of our intelligence agencies have confirmed.
17 different United States intelligence agencies.
17 of them.
Minutes ago, President Trump tweeted. Former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper and others stated that there is no evidence POTUS colluded with Russia. This story is fake news and everyone knows it, close quote. California Congressman Adam Schiff is the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. He is with us from Washington for his only interview before the committee hearing. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning to you, Charlie.
It's good to have you here. You said yesterday that there was circumstantial evidence of collusion. What's the circumstantial evidence?
Well, some of it I can't go into, but some of it will be discussed at the hearing today, and we'll see just how much Director Comey is willing to discuss. I was surprised to see Director Clapper make that kind of categorical statement because that's not consistent with what I've reviewed. I also think in addition to that circumstantial evidence, there's very direct evidence of deception, and probably the very best public example I can give you for that is when Michael Flynn lied about his conversation with the Russian ambassador. And this wasn't just any conversation. This was a conversation he had about the Russian response to sanctions that were imposed on Russia by President Obama over what? Over their interference in the campaign to help Donald Trump.
I want to start with this new report about Russian efforts to contact Hope Hicks. What do you make of this continued effort to permeate President Trump's inner circle?
Well, without getting the specifics of that allegation, we do know that the Russians throughout the campaign were making outreach to the campaign. They continue that during the transition, including some of the people they had talked to during the campaign, and obviously even after that point. So this is part of a concerted Russian influence operation that never stopped. We've also seen a lot of what we saw during the campaign in terms of Russian social media intervention never stop. The only issue I took when James Comey testified that the Russians will be back is they've never left in terms of certain parts of their active measures campaign, but it's not at all a surprise that they would make outreach to people they thought would have influence in the administration and misrepresent who they were and what their agenda was.
House Democrats have released thousands of Facebook ads bought by Russians. The internet agency, the research agency, purchased the ads from 2015 to late 2017. Lawmakers say that they were bought to weaken U.S. democracy. Alfred Ng is a CNET reporter and joins us now to discuss all of this. So, Alfred, what was really the reasoning behind releasing these ads, and what do you think House Democrats are hoping to accomplish?
So the House Democrats released all 3,000 of the ads today to basically show these are the talking points and these are the themes and the images that Russian trolls used in their attempts to, basically spread political chaos and just basically show these are the issues that they believe that Americans will be the most divisive about.
Well, I do have to add my own contribution to this shit show that was the last 3 years, do I not? So here's the little piece that I had to put in because everybody in the news media said the exact opposite of this claim. This study was done in 2019, just before the 2020. So it was last year. This study was last year. It took 3 years to compile and complete, and this is what it found. And only a couple people wrote about it, mind you. The rest of them said the exact opposite. And I do mean the others by MSNBC and whatnot. Search this. Study finds social media had little influence in the 2016 elections on YouTube. What will you find? The exact opposite being said by every alphabet soup media out there. So let's get into it just a little bit, and then I'm going to read you the abstract and kind of explain it because it's in, you know, academic terms, and academic terms aren't exactly friendly. So, new study finds that social media had little influence in the 2016 elections. Social media on voters' opinions in the last 20 election, despite the belief it had strongly influenced the public's perception of candidates on core issues, had little effect. This study was published Wednesday, but Wednesday for them was in 2019, in March 27th. It was revealed that the social media didn't play as large a role in swaying the people's opinions as the general public believes that it did. During the 2016 U.S. presidential election, social media use had no measurable aggregate influence on issues, beliefs. Meaning partisans will be partisans. Those in the middle kind of don't believe anyone at this point because everybody's fucking lying to us. And it's ridiculous. Everybody in the social influence network of the corporate America, your Jake Tapper and friends, are full of shit. Constantly pulling stuff out of their ass for clickbait ratings, for views. They're no better than the view farmers that always say shit like, don't forget to hit like and hit subscribe and don't forget to click that knife. And certainly, I want to hear from you in the comments below. Those kind of assholes are the same as the ones that write those nifty little headlines that make you want to click them so that you can read some bullshit that they made up at one point. So let me get over to the study real quick. The study in the abstract, and this is kind of hard to see. I apologize, blowing it up. I'll leave a link in the description. That'll be a little bit easier. There is considerable concern about the role social media such as Facebook and Twitter play in promoting misperceptions during political campaigns. These technologies are widely used, and inaccurate information flowing across them has high profile. And as I just showed you, Russia bought Facebook ads. That was the extent of the collusion. They tried to reach out to some candidates. That didn't pan out, so what did they do? They bought ads. Over 3,000 Facebook ads. And what happened? Everybody went to Facebook and said, censor now. Hence, we're in the shit storm that we are right now, and I'm so glad Zuckerberg's doing a 180 on that shit. That's the smartest move he's done thus far. Anyways, this research uses a three-wave panel surveys conducted with representative samples of Americans during both the 2012 and 2016 elections. So three-wave means they went out and grabbed a bunch of data, went out and grabbed another bunch of data, and went out and grabbed another bunch of data. So it's incredibly quantitative, which means there's no wishy-washy feelings, there's no quality of values met. It was a quantitative study. That's what a three-wave panel survey is. They're really trying to avoid falsifiability, which means the study could be failure. It could not be replicable. That kind of stuff. And in fact, this probably could be replicated to some point. Anyways, fixed effects regression helps ensure that the observable effects are not due to individual preference or differences. So the differences between a standard Democrat and a Republican, assuming the Democrat hasn't gone off the rails and walked away by now. Results indicate that social media use had small but significant influence on misperceptions about President Obama in the 2012 election, and that this effect was most pronounced among strong partisans. So in other words, the more partisan you were, the more you were likely to believe any hate shit that came out about Obama. such as birther records, shit like that. Social media had no effect on the belief accuracy about the Republican candidate in that election, mainly because there wasn't much out there for the Republican candidate other than Romney, you're a Mormon. Oops, now you fail. In the 2016 survey focused on campaign issues, but there is no evidence that social media there is no evidence that social media use influenced belief accuracy about the topics of these aggregate, but Facebook users were unique. Social media used by this group reduced issue misperceptions relative to those who only used other social media. These results demonstrate that social media can alter citizens' willingness to endorse falsehoods during an election, but that the effects are often small. Meaning, there was a lot more shared on Facebook than anywhere else. That's where Russia did its campaign, if you will. Okay? So, because that was a unique situation, they were flooded with misinformation over there on purpose by the Russians. No one disputes this, not even Trump at this point. But Schiff and friends don't believe that. The reality is it had little to no effect except for those people that already would have believed that shit anyways. These are like the 9/11 truthers, flat earthers, fucking anti-vaxxers. Those type of people, but politically indicated, or politically swayed, excuse me. They're going to think the same goddamn way. Okay? Now that I've explained this a little bit to you, because there was no video out there to cover this shit, I'm going to get right back to the crazy shit. Hope you enjoy.
The Democrats descending into further hysteria, once again calling for the impeachment of President Trump.
Yeah, well, they were doing that before he was even elected. Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry joins us live right now. Well, now, Ed, one big Democrat has gone to Twitter to say, get ready.
That's right. Good morning, guys. It's interesting because Maxine Waters, as you say, has been talking about impeachment really since before President Trump was even sworn in. She's been talking about it for months now. And yesterday, she sort of unleashed this mysterious tweet that simply said, get ready for impeachment. Now, she did not add any details, and that may be because when she's previously raised this subject, the details, frankly, were pretty murky.
At the outset, and on behalf of my colleagues, I want to thank you, Special Counsel Mueller, for a lifetime of service to the country. Your report, for those who have taken the time to study it, is methodical, and it is devastating. For it tells the story of a foreign adversary's sweeping and systematic intervention in a close U.S. presidential election. That should be enough to deserve the attention of every American, as you well point out. But your report tells another story as well. For the story of the 2016 election is also a story about disloyalty to country, about greed, and about lies.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, everyone, to the last gasp of the Russia collusion conspiracy theory. As Democrats continue to foist this spectacle on the American people, as well as you, Mr. Mueller, the American people may recall the media first began spreading this conspiracy theory in the spring of 2016, when Fusion GPS, funded by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign, started developing the Steele dossier, a collection of outlandish accusations that Trump and his associates were Russian agents. Fusion GPS, Steele, and other Confederates fed these absurdities to naive or partisan reporters and to top officials in numerous government agencies, including the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the State Department. Among other things, the FBI used dossier allegations to obtain a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. Despite acknowledging dossier allegations as being salacious and unverified, former FBI Director James Comey briefed those allegations to President Obama and President-elect Trump. Those briefings conveniently leaked to the press, resulting in the publication of the dossier and launching thousands of false press stories based on the word of a foreign ex-spy, one who admitted he was desperate that Trump lose the election and who was eventually fired as an FBI source for leaking to the press. After Comey himself was fired, by his own admission, he leaked derogatory information on President Trump to the press for the specific purpose, and successfully so, of engineering the appointment of a special counsel who sits here before us today.
Good afternoon, Chairman Schiff, Ranking Member Nunes, and members of the committee. I testified this morning before the House Judiciary Committee. I ask that the opening statement I made before that committee be incorporated into the record here.
Without objection, Director.
I understand that this committee has a unique jurisdiction and that you are interested in further understanding the counterintelligence implications of our investigation. So let me say a word about how we handled the potential impact of our investigation on counterintelligence matters. As we explained in our report, the special counsel regulations effectively gave me the role of United States Attorney. As a result, we structured our investigation around evidence for possible use in prosecution of federal crimes. We did not reach what you would call counterintelligence conclusions. We did, however, set up processes in the office to identify and pass counterintelligence information onto the FBI. Members of our office periodically brief the FBI about counterintelligence information. In addition, there were agents and analysts from the FBI who were not on our team, but whose job it was to identify counterintelligence information in our files and to disseminate that information to the FBI. For these reasons, questions about what the FBI has done with the counterintelligence information obtained from our investigation should be directed to the FBI. I also want to reiterate a few points that I made this morning. I am not making any judgments or offering opinions about the guilt or innocence in any pending case. It is unusual for a prosecutor to testify about a criminal investigation, and given my role as a prosecutor, there are reasons why my testimony will necessarily be limited. First, public testimony could affect several ongoing matters. In some of these matters, court rules or judicial orders limit the disclosure of information to protect the fairness of the proceedings. And consistent with longstanding Justice Department policy, it would be inappropriate for me to comment in any way that could affect an ongoing matter. Finally, as I said this morning, over the course of my career, I have seen a number of challenges to our democracy. The Russian government's efforts to interfere in our election is among the most serious, and I am sure that the committee agrees. Now, before we go to questions, I want to add one correction to my testimony this morning. I want to go back to one thing that was said this morning by Mr. Liu, who said, and I quote, "You didn't charge the president because of the OLC opinion." That is not the correct way to say it. As we say in the report, and as I said at the opening, we did not reach a determination as to whether the president committed a crime. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to answer questions.
Good afternoon. Last Tuesday, we observed the anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution on September 17th. Sadly, on that day, the Intelligence Community Inspector General formally notified the Congress that the administration was forbidding him from turning over a whistleblower complaint on Constitution Day. This is a violation of law. Shortly thereafter, press reports began to break of a phone call by the President of the United States calling upon a foreign power to intervene in his election. This is a breach of his constitutional responsibilities. The facts are these. The Intelligence Community Inspector General, who was appointed by President Trump, determined that the complaint is both of urgent concern and credible. And its disclosure, he went on to say, relates to one of the most significant and important of the Director of National Intelligence's responsibility to the American people. On Thursday, the Inspector General testified before the House Intelligence Committee stating that the acting Director of National Intelligence blocked him from disclosing the whistleblower complaint. This is a violation of law. The law is unequivocal. The DNI staff, it says the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, shall provide Congress the full whistleblower complaint. For more than 25 years, I've served on the Intelligence Committee as a member, as the ranking member, as part of the Gang of Four, even before I was in the leadership. I was there when we created the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. That did not exist before 2004. I was there even earlier in the 90s when we wrote the whistleblower laws and continue to write them to improve them to ensure the security of our intelligence and the safety of our whistleblowers. I know what their purpose was, and we proceeded with balance and caution as we wrote the laws. I can say with authority the Trump administration's actions undermine both our national security and our intelligence and our protections of the whistleblowers, more than both. This Thursday, the acting DNI will appear before the House Intelligence Committee. At that time, he must turn over the whistleblower's full complaint to the committee. He will have to choose whether to break the law or honor his responsibility to the Constitution. On the final day of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, when our Constitution was adopted, Americans gathered on the steps of Independence Hall to await the news of the government our founders had crafted. They asked Benjamin Franklin, "What do we have, a republic or a monarchy?" Franklin replied, "A republic if you can keep it." Our responsibility is to keep it. Our republic endures because of the wisdom of our Constitution, enshrined in 3 co-equal branches of government, serving as checks and balances on each other. The actions taken to date by the President have seriously violated the Constitution, especially when the President says, Article 2 says I can do whatever I want. For the past several months, we have been investigating in our committees and litigating in the courts, so the House can gather all the relevant facts and consider whether to exercise its full Article 1 powers, including a constitutional power of the utmost gravity, approval of articles of impeachment. And this week, the President has admitted to asking the President of Ukraine to take actions which would benefit him politically. The actions of the Trump presidency revealed the dishonorable fact of the President's betrayal of his oath of office, betrayal of our national security, and betrayal of the integrity of our elections. Therefore, today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry. I'm directing our 6 committees to proceed with their investigations under that umbrella of impeachment inquiry. The President must be held accountable. No one is above the law. Getting back to our founders, in the darkest days of the American Revolution, Thomas Paine wrote, "The times have found us. The times found them to fight for and establish our democracy. The times have found us today, not to place ourselves in the same category of greatness as our founders, but to place us in the urgency of protecting and defending our Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic." In the words of Ben Franklin, to keep our republic. I thank our chairman, Chairman Nadler, Chairman Schiff, Chairman Nadler of Judiciary, Chairman Schiff of Intelligence, Chairman Engel of Foreign Affairs, Chairman Cummings of Oversight, and Chairman Cummings I've been in touch with constantly. He's a master of so much, but including inspectors general and whistleblowers. Congresswoman Richie Neal of the Ways and Means Committee, Congresswoman Maxine Waters of the Foreign Financial Services Committee. And I commend all of our members, our colleagues, for their thoughtful approach to all of this, for their careful statements. God bless them, and God bless America. Thank you all. makes a funny signature, but it does give us a lot of pens. Say the clerk of the House will lead the way to the Senate side to the dynamic.
The Senate will convene as a court of impeachment. If there's no objection, the journal of proceedings of the trial are approved to date. The Deputy Sergeant at Arms will make the proclamation.
Hear ye, hear ye. All persons are commanded to keep silence on pain of imprisonment while the Senate of the United States is sitting for the trial of the articles of impeachment exhibited by the House of Representatives against Donald John Trump, President of the United States. As a reminder to everyone in the chamber, as well as those in the galleries, demonstrations of approval or disapproval are prohibited.
On this article of impeachment, 48 senators have pronounced Donald John Trump, President of the United States, guilty as charged. 52 senators have pronounced him not guilty as charged. 2/3 of the senators present not having pronounced him guilty, the Senate adjudges that the respondent, Donald John Trump, President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the first article of impeachment. On this article of impeachment, 47 senators have pronounced Donald John Trump, President of the United States, guilty as charged. 53 senators have pronounced him not guilty as charged. 2/3 of the senators present not having pronounced him guilty, the Senate adjudges that respondent, Donald John Trump, President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the second article of impeachment. The presiding officer directs judgment to be entered in accordance with the judgment of the Senate as follows. The Senate, having tried Donald John Trump, President of the United States, upon 2 articles of impeachment exhibited against him by the House of Representatives, and 2/3 of the senators present not having found him guilty of the charges contained therein, it is therefore ordered and adjudged that the said Donald John Trump be, and he is hereby, acquitted of the charges in said articles.
All our hard work for nothing.